So my name is Chiara De Franco. I'm associate professor at the University of Southern Denmark, and I'm also co-director of the Center for War Studies.
Great. So you're here because your book, Warning About War, won the International Studies Association's annual book award. Congratulations with that.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit more about the book and the award, and what is it all about?
Yeah, so the book is about warning about war, and it focuses on the issues of conflict warning. So it focuses on how organizations and governments do produce and receive and act upon warning about conflict. So in general, the wisdom, before our book was that there is a warning response gap, so that organizations very often do not respond to warnings in a timely and effective manner. And this has been explained as either a lack of political will, so decision makers not really being interested in mobilizing resources to prevent conflicts in faraway areas in the world, or as a problem of the quality of the warnings. So we have observed that both international organizations and governments have invested quite a lot of resources into quantitative systems for predicting conflict escalations, or institutional renewal to improve decision making. This way of looking at the problem to us is missing an important point, and that is conflict prevention is a field of policy making in the context of very strong uncertainty. And that therefore warning should not be treated as just a transfer of communication and a transfer of information, but it really has an act of persuasion, because the warner has to convince decision makers about the validity of their knowledge claim. So they have to convince that how the way they portray the situation on the ground is believable, is true, is trustworthy, and that therefore some action has to be taken, and that can be all sorts of actions, right, from diplomacy to mobilization of military forces. But it requires that the recipient of the warning buys into the story, basically, that is told by the warner. And this implies that interpersonal relations are very important. This means that the track record of the warner is important. And as we wrote in the book, I mean, this is really a people business, right? So it's not just about how bureaucracy works and how systems put together information that then is transferred to policymakers, but it's much more about the relationship between warners and policymakers, how they understand each other, when they do understand each other, and where that leads, right, to what kind of policy development. Yes.
I know you worked 10 years on this book, right? If not more. And I think you finished the manuscript in 2018, and now 3 years later, so you've won these 2 prizes for the book. But maybe you can also put some words on how working on this book, thinking about the topics of the book, actually impact sort of your wider research agenda, the topics you work on today. How are the topics of the book reflected in that?
Yeah. So I think that the most important lesson for me was that it made me even more convinced that issues of communication are key to international relations. When I started my PhD back in 2002, I think, communication was just, I don't know, it was really not at the core of the discipline. I started attending meetings of the International Communications section of the ISA in 2009, and I noted, that it was a kind of how to say, it was it was almost a marginalized group, right? I mean, it was not like the other more important sections, like the international, the theory section, and or political sociology or intelligence or foreign policy, and it was a bunch of scholars doing things that were still, considered communication more than IR. So for me, it's really an encouragement to keep going with that research agenda, and look into how communication matter, how language matter in international relations. So I'm pretty committed to that. I'm trying to develop some papers about it, and I'm trying also to embed it into research, which is apparently on different things. Like I'm now PI of a project on how the European Union, the United Nations, and the African Union practice protection of civilians in Mali, CAR, and Somalia. So that is, in principle, is really about the, practices of protection. And one would think communication is once again pretty marginal to that, but to me that is really not the case. So I'm trying to look at how actually, for example, diplomatic exchanges are, on issues of protection that happen in between different organizations, are also a matter of communication, and that they are ultimately conversations. And I'm looking also at how warning systems are embedded in operational setups, especially UN missions in Mali, and the AU mission in Somalia.
It's really fascinating research, and I think it's quite clear how sort of these red lines work themselves through, right, in terms of the relevance of communication. Now, based on your experience writing this book and winning these awards, do you have any advice for people who want to succeed with a major book project like that? What can they do? How is it done?
I think the most difficult thing is to battle with one own self-doubts, right? When setting up ambitions for one own work. Because I think that even when we believe we have a very strong idea, it might be difficult to feel that what you're doing might lead to an award. And in fact, I think that none of us really start research on the basis of that kind of objective or ambition, right? But at the same time, I think that the ambition has to be set in such a way that it creates the opportunity for something so original and innovative, groundbreaking, we used to say, to lead to an award, because those are certainly characteristics of a publication that are necessary for a committee to give an award like that. But I also think that there is that collaboration is important. So sometimes I think we should also go step out of this individualistic bubble that in a way the academia foster, and see collaboration with other colleagues as a way to produce something better than we could do alone, right? I mean, especially if that collaboration works well, and if it is really a place for common development and sharing, of ideas, and then I think it's quite obvious, at least to me, that the end result will be better than what single, people would do individually. And it's also about taking time, I think, and I understand that for early career researchers in particular, taking time to develop ideas properly is a privilege that many do not have, and the job market is just terribly discouraging in that sense, because actually, it encourages to go the other way, to rush paper and get ideas out and invest on quantity more than quality. But I think that probably one could try, ideally, to do both, right? I mean, one can have a line of research where one can invest time, right? Where one takes the luxury to think and wait and sit with the manuscript a bit before submitting. And then maybe there can be a parallel line of research that can allow for a more, for I wouldn't say easier publications, but publications that require maybe a bit less innovation, right, to be possible, and a little bit maybe less thinking, setting up the ambition on a a kind of gradual advancement of knowledge instead of of setting it up as a breakthrough. So ideally, I think finding a balance between the two might be the way, if possible.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I think we'll stop here, and yeah, thank you for joining me for this video.